And we're live. Hi, everyone. Number one Marmaduke fan here. And today I am joined by Mike, the co creator of Samurai and Dinosaurs. Say hi.
Hi, how are you doing, everyone?
And you go by Chibi Mike on Twitter, right?
Yeah, Chibi underscore Mike on Twitter, and my YouTube page is the Chibi Mike, all one word.
And you're like the main guy for Chibi Comics, is that right?
Yeah, my wife and I founded the studio, so I guess technically I'm co-publisher.
Gotcha. All right, so Samurai and Dinosaurs. I have the link for the Indiegogo campaign for this comic in the description, and I watched your video on it, and I got a chance to look at some examples of the artist, Sergio Calve's art.
Great,
And
yeah,
it's really interesting style, kind of like he is a European artist. It's got kind of like maybe like an exaggerated, kind of like expressive cartoon style is how I
yeah.
describe it. Tell me a little bit about tell us a little bit about the project and how did you meet Sergio Calve and how did you two start working together?
Sure. Well, Sergio and I have known each other a long time now, going back all the way to oh wow, I don't know, maybe 2001, 2002-ish. We met originally when Mark Miller or Millar, I don't know, like no one knows how to pronounce his name. We met when he first launched Miller World, and we were both on the forums there. And then we migrated over to another forum called Your Mom's Basement, and it was there that we really got to know each other. And I was trying to get a superhero project off the ground with one artist, and that fell through. And Sergio found out a bit about the project and wanted in. And so I guess since then we've been working together off and on. So it's coming up on like 15 plus years now.
Fantastic. I'm gonna do a screen share so I can show everyone some samples of the art on my
Sure.
end. Here we go. All right, so this is the Indiegogo page for it, uh, and we can see some example. You got a couple pages. What I like about this is you've given us the basic idea, but you haven't let slip too much. Like I know, like I obviously know there's going to be some samurai and dinosaurs. I can see some examples of Sergio's expressive style, but a lot of this is still kind of wrapped in mystery. So we've got the samurai, and it's sort of like there's a hole opening in time that's allowing the Jurassic dinosaurs to start entering into things. And we get some hints that there will be a little, like drama between the samurai behind the scenes. What can you tell us, maybe without spoiling any like really like cool plot points of the comic?
Sure. Yeah, a lot of that's intentional. Like I tried to pick preview pages that would, kind of like a movie trailer that would get across the basic plot without revealing a lot of stuff. I mean, for the most part, it is a straightforward road movie where it's more about the journey than the destination necessarily. But there is a slight twist towards the end, and I've been very cagey about that stuff. But in general, yeah. Samurai and Dinosaurs is a bunch of things kind of all rolled into one. It's a revenge story. It's an homage to art house and grindhouse samurai films.
Akira
Um,
Kurosawa, right?
yeah, Kurosawa and like the Lone Wolf and Cub movies, and the manga for that matter.
Yeah.
Um, there's about like 10% Jurassic Park in there, especially with some of the brontosaurus shots. And yeah, like I said, we pay respects to classic stuff like Lone Wolf and Cub and Usagi Yojimbo.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I was getting that. I was actually getting that Usagi Yojimbo vibe from kind of like how. What's interesting about Usagi is that Sakai has a very Western style, but he has a deep respect for Japanese cinema, and his storytelling is absolutely soaked with that. So I always love seeing when like a Western writer artist combo are really steeped in actually the spirit of it.
yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your Hollywood influences, because I had not heard of what was the name of the special effects guy that you wanted to pay homage to.
Oh yeah, Ray Harryhausen.
Yeah.
So when you think on like the golden age of like, black and white cinema, and you think to stuff like King Kong, Valley of the Guanji, Clash of the Titans, all of that stop motion work was Ray Harryhausen. And so what I've been saying when I give the elevator pitch for Samurai and Dinosaurs is I always loved the idea of like this hypothetical movie that doesn't exist where Kurosawa and Harryhausen got together and just, you know, uh, belted out like this ultimate epic.
Huh. That is a great pitch. I love that. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, because Kurosawa was really interested in his cinematography, and the hypothetical is, what if it had like Harryhausen's like special effects budget, right?
Exactly.
Because like a lot of Kurosawa movies, they're brilliantly filmed, but they won't have like the giant animatronics and things like that.
Right. Yeah, they're very subdued. I mean, they're all amazing. I mean, everything from Seven Samurai to Yojimbo, like they're amazing films, but they're very subdued. There's nothing really bombastic to them.
I get that. Yeah. So, uh, tell me a little bit about maybe your creative influences. Like, one of my teachers used to call it story soup because like all the great artists in history would throw their ingredients in the story soup. What has been like some of your story soup that inspires you to create?
Sure. Well, I've always been into comics. Like I think I said this either on Malin or with Narwhal one day. Um, like one of the first things that I drew as a kid was Superman on this giant chalkboard that my mom bought me. And it was just the S and like a smiley face for the head and like, sticks for the arms and legs coming out of the S. Um, so comics have always been a part of my life. And, as a kid, like when Batman the Animated Series premiered, I remember seeing that very first episode and just thinking to myself, well, obviously this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And then, like as a teen and heading into my 20s, I got into Grant Morrison, Warren Ellis, you know, uh, filmmakers like Rodriguez and Kevin Smith, and
Yeah.
obviously. Uh,
I keep going.
no, so like that stuff kind of laid the foundation for like a lot of what I do today. But now like I find myself going back and like studying like classic cinema and even like going back and reading like some of the older comics out there. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
Nice. I noticed that this is Samurai and Dinosaurs remastered. Has this had like a little indie printing before?
Yeah, so Edwin Boyette actually right after we launched, he took a look at it and he was like, he asked the same question. And basically, we created the book a few years ago to pitch to a handful of publishers. Um, the closest it ever got to publication was, if you know who Archaea is, they publish Mouse Guard.
Oh, I know Mouse Guard. Okay, yeah,
Yeah, like there were active meetings where they were considering it, but it ultimately fell through because that was around when Archaea merged with Boom.
gotcha.
So, kind of that was one of the factors that led to them passing because, they were no longer solely responsible for their own business decisions.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah. So at that point, like it just kind of went into a drawer, so to speak. And we moved on to other pitches. But so no, it hasn't technically been released. And so Edwin was like, well, if it's basically new to everybody except you, don't call it remastered.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Are you still considering depending on how the Indiegogo campaign goes, are you still considering using a publisher that would distribute to like traditional comic book shops?
Well, okay. As as we're a part of Comicsgate, we've committed to, like almost 100% to self-publishing.
Gotcha.
Um, we're happy to talk to comic shops if they get in touch with us, like on a local level or national level. But right now, we're just kind of focused on, direct distribution straight to the readers.
Gotcha. And so let's talk a little about the tiers a little bit. So you've got a digital tier, right? And I like that you've offered that because a lot of people, it's tough, trying to, part with like $50 a month, or multiple times a month if there are multiple projects. You've got like an $8 tier, which is
Yeah.
which is a decent price to get the digital book, and then 20 for print and $25 to stack them both. And that's the tier I went in because I want to have the physical book, but I want to have like the digital book for my reference. So that was the perfect tier for me.
Thank you.
You've also got like you've got like a double your pleasure tier where people can get 2 books, and I've seen a few Indiegogo campaigns do this. You've got a troop tier. Tell us a little bit about the troop tier.
Yeah, I mean, once word of the campaign started getting around, I had multiple people, both publicly and privately, get in touch with me, and they were like, "What are you doing? Have a troop tier." So that was a fairly late addition, but it's totally been worth it, and I'm glad those people approached me with it. So basically, for I think 135 total, you get 2 copies for yourself, like the previous tier, but we'll be sending 3 copies out to the troops. Now, what's listed is that we'll be sending it via the USO, but I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, Mike S. Miller posted something on Twitter that the USO is no longer accepting care packages.
Really?
Yeah, so he provided a reference, and I don't have it off the top of my head, but he provided another foundation that accepts donations and distributes them. So we're going to be
Gotcha.
going through that group.
All right. Sounds like a plan. I'd like to bring up the Indiegogo campaign again, so I can because I just dig the idea, right? Like I've seen movies like Cowboys and Aliens where there's this big idea to it of like 2 cool things coming together. But what I really appreciate your project is the thought you've put into like cinema and comics history, and like like I said before, I was immediately getting the Usagi Yojimbo images, so I'm excited based on just the kind of like fluidity of Sergio's art style and your ideas about storytelling for this project. So to the live chat, any questions you have about Samurai and Dinosaurs? I did a little like behind the scenes shenanigans here, so I've got it on my phone now. So I'll pass any of these questions along to onto my guest Mike Murphy, and I just want to look at some of this art again. I love the detail shots, and I think it's like what you said before, like the cinematic style. Like you've got a mix. You've got like close-ups of faces and action scenes. You've got some quieter shots of nature. You pull out to show all the details. You use scale well, like showing like the big monstrous beasts and like the little details of the forest. Okay, so here's my question. What is your back and forth like with Sergio? Are you kind of a bit more of a hands-off writer that just says, okay, artist, go do whatever occurs to you, or do you do layouts? What's the collaboration like between you two on planning how the comic will look?
Sure. It goes back and forth from project to project. With this one, it was fully scripted. I for most of the stuff that I write, be it for Sergio or whoever, I write in full script. But there's kind of, since we've been working together so long now, like there's kind of this understanding of like, hey, if you know how this action scene should play out, or if you think you have a better idea for pacing when it comes to like, a character reveal or like setting an establishing shot, like you can rearrange or edit whatever you want on the fly, and I'll just go back in during the lettering phase and adjust.
A little like you're just like visual storytelling decisions, right?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I've heard multiple writers say this, but like the writing basically isn't done all the way until you're doing the lettering. Like
Huh.
I consider the lettering phase like when you're editing a film.
Yeah.
Like there's so many times like I'll go back in once I see the artwork and I see how the artist has rendered a facial expression or something, and it's like, well, okay, like that image gets across what I was saying with this caption or this dialogue, so it's completely redundant, and I'll just pull it out.
Yeah. We have a question from the live chat. Jonah Arts asks, do the samurai carry any old flintlock rifles and pistols?
Someone in a writers group that I'm a part of asked that. No, it's all traditional weaponry, just swords, except for Tetsubun Dorgan, who he's kind of the, like, if you want to talk like in terms of video game logic, he's kind of the tank of the group.
This would
Um,
be the guy with the dinosaur face.
yeah, so Tetsubun Dorgan is a soldier who's crafted a dragon mech suit for himself. It's steam powered and it's built out of iron and bamboo.
Nice. So okay, that's interesting because now you're also bringing in kind of a steampunk vibe to it. So it's not strictly like a realistic what if real samurai fought real dinosaurs. You are bringing in just some fun fantasy, like cool robot costume elements into it.
Yeah, a little bit. We didn't want to go too over the edge with the unrealistic stuff, even though like a dragon mech suit is pretty unrealistic. But more so, we just wanted all the characters to stand out and be individual.
Yeah.
Like the guy with the long, shaggy black hair.
Huh?
He believes that he's possessed by a demon. So yeah, like we just, A, Sergio wanted to draw a dragon mech suit, and B, we just wanted to like build a team of individuals.
Yeah. And I notice you have seven samurai plus one. So it is like I think you mentioned that the Seven Samurai is one of the Kurosawa films. Do you think that's just like a good number for samurai storytelling or something?
Yeah, I was I was getting crap from Doug TeNapel and Ethan. They were like, "What are you doing putting in 8?" Um, there's a reason that and I didn't get into this with them the other night. There's a reason that there's 8. The female member of the group is a last minute addition,
Hmm.
and a lot of the mystery and part of the twist towards the end of the story is tied to her.
Gotcha. Now that's interesting. So you did have some maybe like in your writing processes you had some changes crop up. So the original inspiration, your kind of elevator pitch is what if Kurosawa got to do like this big budget special effects film with Harryhausen.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about what changed in the process of writing it. Did like your original vision kind of amend or evolve at all as you were going?
Yeah, I don't know that I've said this publicly before. So to be honest, like when I was writing it, I kind of Neil Gaiman will often talk about how he'll just kind of write stream of conscious, and like the story kind of dictates where it's going as he's writing it. That's kind of how I wanted to approach Samurai and Dinosaurs. Like I knew where they were going, and I knew what was going to be at the destination when they got there. But a lot of stuff in between was kind of made up along the way, and like how they deal with the issue, I didn't have anything set up in my head until we actually got there. And once the team got there, the twist and how things could resolve themselves just all kind of popped into my head, and I'm like, oh well, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of it kind of like grew organically, so to speak, as I wrote it.
Jonah Arts has two related questions for us. Jonah likes the mecha suit and asks, what time period does this take place in? And what kind of weapons and armor do the characters have?
Okay. So we purposely don't put a firm year on it. I will say that it is the Edo period. There's the main antagonist, if you want to call him an antagonist, is a daimyo. The daimyos were basically like city officials. They were kind of like mayors or governors, uh, and the daimyos would answer directly to the shogun.
You could be killed if you mess with a daimyo, right, or cross their path.
Yeah, exactly. So it's in that time period, but we don't put a specific date on it.
Yeah, kind of.
Um,
It lets us kind of like enter the story a little bit more if we're not worried about like what the politics of the current emperor right now, right?
yeah, yeah. I wanted to do enough world building to get the story moving, but not so much that it's like 50 pages in before the characters are even on the road.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about maybe like your individual characters and how do you think about crafting their emotions or their stakes in the story.
Yeah, sure. I can actually pull up a whole. I did an update. If you want to like scroll down to the updates.
All right, let's see here. Ooh, there's the bottom with all the art.
That's weird.
Okay, I think I know where updates are though. Updates.
Okay,
Here we go.
there you
Ooh,
go.
all right, you got some videos. Nice.
Yeah. So if you scroll down to there should be one about the cast.
Meet the cast.
There you
Oh, I
go.
wish I'd read this. Nice, Ren. Oh,
Yeah,
you got character art for all of them too. Cool.
yeah. So like there were backers who were like, "Hey, I'm interested, but I want to know more about the characters, more so than necessarily just the story." So I took an afternoon and put this together, and it basically covers who each of the samurai are and what their motivations are.
Huh. All right, so you've got like your old weathered veteran. You got
Exactly.
like your eccentric artist with like kind of like a Kotobushi. That's interesting because that connects like the ideas of like brushwork and calligraphy to short sword play, right?
E-
Like seeing,
e-
seeing those
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. His introduction. He's the first one that meets Ren, who's the old vet and the de facto main character, and
Yeah.
his introduction is he with his sword writes his name in the dirt beneath them, basically like calligraphy or brushwork.
No, that is such like a great samurai movie thing you're describing. I'm digging it.
Thanks, man.
All right. I'm going to let you talk because I don't know these characters yet. Okay, so we got, tell us about Yutaka.
Yeah, Yotaka is basically the rookie of the group. So because none of them, I mean, it's not like they know that dinosaurs are waiting for them or what they're getting into. The cast is as diverse as it is because the daimyo is basically trying to put together people with as many different specialties as possible.
Huh.
So on the off chance that it's related to like vandals or gangs or anything, Yotaka is kind of the rookie who has like his ear to the ground with street level stuff.
Huh. So there's like an A team aspect to that where each of them contributes to the adventure side of things in a slightly different way.
Exactly. And Yotaka totally looks up to Ren. He's a student of the same school that Ren went to.
Interesting. So he might be the I've forgotten the names of the Seven Samurai characters, but if Ren is the Gorobe of Samurai Seven, what's the name of the kid who looked up
Yeah,
to
I'm
Gorobe? Katsuro, I think.
that's that
I
sounds
watched
about
the anime too, so that helped me learn a lot of their names. Okay, so
right.
Yutaka's kind of the young one. All right, this one believes he's possessed by a demon, right?
Right. Sari believes that he's possessed by a demon.
Huh.
He's a part of a cult that believes in surrendering the flesh to higher or based on your perspective lower powers.
Wow.
And so he's not to break everything down into nerd terms, but like he's kind of the whole Wolverine like best he is at what he does thing. You know, in case they need like
Oh, dude, this is very
a
nice.
cold-blooded killer to get stuff done.
Dope. And okay, Let me try to read this. Kenkyusha Fukami.
Yes.
Okay, a scholar, right?
Yeah, scholar, research scientist, botanist, all around like you know, all around science man, fill in for whatever technical stuff pops up.
Yeah. Somatsu Itamai.
Yeah, Sumatsu is the chef of the group. Again, because it's a road movie, like they need provisions and they need someone who can dole out that stuff and oversee, like rationing and whatnot.
Interesting. Did you happen to watch One Piece at all?
I have the collection of the first 3 trades together. I haven't been able to check it out yet, though.
All right. So, do you like obviously Kurosawa? Is manga a big influence on your writing at all?
Um, I have an appreciation for some manga, but like it's not like as extensive as my comic knowledge.
Okay. And what's interesting is I think a lot of contemporary manga they use the tropes of old Japanese movies. So that's one thing that's interesting to me about them. But
Mhm.
it does seem to be kind of a different tradition of storytelling than like Kurosawa cinema. Like Kurosawa cinema is really visual. It's really dense, and manga seems to be at least like the popular manga. It's kind of following the pattern of like Marvel Comics adventure stories. So I can see how someone could like be a huge Kurosawa fan and not a big manga fan, or vice versa.
Right.
All right, this guy Tetsubun Doragan. All right, so this is kind of one of the most interesting. What a lot of people were really interested in the like suit of armor.
Right, yeah. That was like I said, that was a thing from Sergio. Like once we started talking about the cast, he was like, I want to draw a dragon mech. And I'm like, all right, man, I'll make it work.
Dope. I love that flexibility. All right, so did Sergio have like sketches or designs for this character prior to you two working together?
Oh no, like I don't know where the idea popped into his head, but like once he understood what the story was, he was like, well, this guy has to be a part of it.
Huh. And it kind of reminds me of Kikachu's character from Samurai 7, because there's like one outsider who like clearly sticks out from the rest of the group.
Oh, totally, yeah. Yeah, and his backstory is was really enjoyable. Basically, like I said, he is a samurai, but he's a soldier first, and he he created the mech for defensive purposes, but
Huh.
more and more his superiors wanted it used for offensive
Huh.
purposes. And when the daimyo gets word that the suit exists, he's like, well, I need you to be the defensive line for whatever they come up against.
Yeah.
So he finally gets to use the suit for why he intended it in the first place.
Nice. All right. This was the late edition, right?
Yeah, that's Tokai. So she's she's in a lot of way the girl Friday or the right hand man to Ren.
Hmm.
She answers directly to the daimyo, and the daimyo, when he introduces her, is like, well, she's an excellent warrior, and she will without a doubt bring a lot to this expedition. Yeah, like mysterious past. Don't really know if you can trust her or not. The group doesn't know if they can trust her or not, and she's tied heavily to the overall story and mythology of
So
the book.
in addition to like the coolness of Samurai and Dinosaurs, we've also got maybe like a political situation with the daimyo that the main characters have to navigate, right?
Right, right, and Ren has a very deep, messed up, complicated past with the daimyo, and
Yeah.
that's actually one of the preview pages.
Oh, I think we saw that. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there, I like you did not want to screw with the government of Japan almost at any point in their history.
Oh
They're
no, no
really
way.
all right. So I'm already backing this campaign. For those who have just recently joined the chat, the link to this Indiegogo campaign is in the description of this video. and you have 5 days left for this campaign, right? Or less than that?
Yeah, it's like
3 days.
4.5 at this point.
All right. So tell us a little bit about the future. Like, obviously, funding this book will let you, like make the presentation look beautiful, get it physically printed. Uh, do you envision sequels? Do you envision similar or radically different projects with Sergio or other artists in the future?
Yeah. Well, so I've mentioned it to Sergio, but I haven't really gone into like huge detail with him because like whenever I get around to finishing the script, I just kind of want to drop it in his lap as like a little gift, and if he wants to do it, he's more than welcome to.
Yeah.
There is an idea for a sequel that I thought of around this time last year.
Huh.
It's very much its own story. Like the other thing that I've been trying to make clear with this campaign is the book is very much standalone. It's not going to be a dot 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 to be continued type
Yeah.
situation. Um, but I was sitting around last year and just the thought for what could be the shell of a sequel popped into my head, and so I'm working on that little by little. As far as the future goes with Chibi Comics and Comicsgate and Indiegogo, if we can get this funded, some of the profits from this book are going to go to help start our next project, which we're hoping to launch around late April or early May.
Yeah.
Um, that I can't, because I haven't secured him yet, I can't say the artist,
All
but
right.
he has done work for a couple of publishers that people in the Comicsgate sphere would know, um, and are kind of more on our side than they're not. He's a great artist, and the title of the book is "The Gods Fear Me,"
Ooh.
and that's going to be, what would the elevator pitch be? So, okay, without dragging it out too long, like the idea for "The Gods Fear Me" came from I was watching Prometheus, and like most people, I didn't really like it. But what stuck out to me about that movie was David the android and the kind of primordial gigantic face hugger.
Yeah.
And my like the first thought in my head was I don't understand why this whole movie isn't androids punching Lovecraftian creatures.
Yeah.
And so The Gods Fear Me is kind of a dystopian far future thing where all of humanity is in deep sleep cryostasis and androids roam the earth and fight against these Lovecraftian beasts.
So I noticed that you like genre mashups, right? Like this cool thing and this cool thing. What if they met? And that really speaks to me as just a guy where I like imagining, unique combinations of things fighting each other. But then you also look at media critically. So you look at Prometheus, and I hated that movie, but there were interesting tidbits to that movie. So I like a writer who looks at a piece of media and then starts playing with it. I think that's a big way of doing writing is what don't I like about something in addition to what I like about something. How what other ways do you do that, or how do you like percolate these ideas?
Um, some, I mean, like my brain's kind of all over the place, but I will admit that a lot of times, like ideas come from like, well, what don't I like about this? Why don't I like it? And like, I don't mean to sound like egotistical, but like the thought does occur to me of like, well, how would I do it better?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, like a lot of times that's my process, but sometimes an idea will just pop into my head fully formed. So it's like there's no one approach, and uh, as to genre mashups, like that is a big thing for me too. I love, like I tried watching a film the other night. It wasn't that good, unfortunately, but the premise itself was really solid. It was called The Vault, uh, and it stars uh, James Franco, and the basic premise is, what if a bank heist turned into a ghost story?
Huh.
And it's a really solid premise, but like they faltered all over the place with the execution.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the whole genre mashup thing, like I think that really got stuck in my head like when I was a teenager and I saw From Dusk Till Dawn for the first time.
I haven't seen that. What's it about?
Um, it's about two brothers who are bank robbers, and they pull off one big score, and all they have to do is get across the border, and they're meeting their contact at a bar, and it turns out that the bar is actually a haven for vampires.
Oh, all right. So the reason you were interested in The Vault is they both have this mashup of the bank heist with the paranormal. And so you look at execution as a way of, I don't know, like working through the idea of the mashup. And what works about From Dusk Till Dawn that doesn't work about The Vault?
Um, it helps that it was directed by Rodriguez and it was written by Tarantino, like both when they were in their prime.
Yeah.
So there's like a certain finesse and style and uh crazy rush of ideas that just that's fun. Um, but with the Vault, like if there's anyone like who is gonna check this movie out, like I won't go too deep into like spoiler territory. Um, just they took what was a very simple process and didn't refine any of the ideas like whatsoever. Like you're sitting there watching it and you're like, well, obviously like there's something in the vault, and by breaking into it they're letting it escape, and then it's not really that. And like basically every thought that you have in your head watching it that seems so cool, like they end up doing something nowhere near as interesting.
Huh. I gotcha. Uh, I'm interested to know, is Samurai and Dinosaurs, will this be the first like completed published project you've done, or have you written or and drawn comics before?
So it's what we when my wife and I first moved out to Portland, we're originally from Chicago.
Yeah.
um like our goal was, hey, we're just gonna move to the West Coast and make comics, and we're gonna get rich and famous and everything's gonna be fine.
Hmm.
uh and then the comic industry was like, well, no. So like we put together pitches, like one or two pitches like every year pretty much from like 2006 or 7 up until last year. But none of them gained much traction.
Hmm.
Samurai was the one that got the furthest. Um, there was a certain point, and this is part of why we came out as aligned with Comicsgate. There was a certain point where we were like, it's the whole thing of like, if the club doesn't want you in, why would you want to be in the club in the first place?
Yeah.
So, like I was just sitting there and I was like, what are we doing? Like the people like Ethan, people like Antonio, Zach from Diversity, like they're proving that this is a sustainable business model. So instead of trying to get other publishers to put out our work for us, why don't we just do it ourselves?
Right.
And so that's the plan moving forward.
So you have done like pitches and such before, but this is your first time doing an independent fundraising campaign for a comic, right?
Yeah, I ran one that was supposed to be a campaign just to put together a book for pitching, and that ended up falling through.
Huh.
So I'm actually having another artist complete that book, and
Okay.
we're gonna be publishing that. And maybe with that one, maybe we're gonna do what the Case File Arkham people did,
Uh-huh.
where the book's complete, and like they ran the campaign just as a model of distribution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not The Gods Fear Me, is it? That's a different project?
Yeah, that's a different project. Yeah, like I'm gonna talk about that more as it gets closer to completion.
Gotcha. All right, so coming soon. Yeah, we'll have you back to break news on the internet for that secret project.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me think. I remember. What have you learned from doing your own like independent campaign? What's been the learning experience like for you of like trying to get this published, pitching the ideas, and running the Indiegogo campaign?
Well, I always jokingly say, don't start a campaign the week before Christmas.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the reason we're so close to the wire is Sergio has several commitments this year with other projects and other writers.
yeah,
And like we wanted to dust Samurai and Dinosaurs off, and I'm redoing some of the writing. He's redoing some of the pages and adding pages. And it was kind of that thing of like it's now or never.
yeah,
So we kind of had to launch when we launched, and I knew we were going to take a big hit, because everyone was doing the whole Christmas thing.
yeah.
So I would definitely suggest don't launch anywhere after October.
Hmm.
Um,
Especially if you're up against like highly competitive big markets. The
yeah,
a smaller market, you have to find a window where there's like there's enough oxygen, and you're not fighting with like the top like the top earners in the indie comics scene that month.
yeah, and basically, because like my day job is I'm a freelance writer illustrator,
Huh.
and yeah, outside of comics for the most part.
Yeah,
Um, I should have taken a lesson from my day job, and the dry months for freelancing are around holidays and around tax season.
yeah.
So like your best window for trying to launch something like April, when everyone's done with the holidays and done with taxes and are starting to get, those checks.
Hmm. Oh,
That's
the
when
tax rebates. Yeah.
right. That tends to be when people have a bit more disposable income.
Have you learned anything about like the physical like print book side of it? Like, have you had to learn about like different types of paper, different types of print, independent printers who can do self-publishing? What's that process like for you?
Yeah, that was I mean, my wife and I print up um a kids book every year for Free Comic Book Day. So
Nice.
yeah, we're pretty familiar with the printing process. The thing that I learned is if if you're going to, and I learned this from John Malin, whatever you think your target delivery date is going to be, bump that up by 2 months,
Okay.
because originally we were planning on going through Print Ninja, just like a bunch of other campaigns are going through. And I knew that they were based in China, and I should have been able to do the math in my head, but I didn't realize that from getting the files to them to getting it delivered to our door would be about a 2 month process.
Yeah.
So if we're funded, like I'm going to have to cut into the profits a little bit, because we're totally going to have to go through a local printer if we're
Okay.
gonna if we're gonna hit the April ship date.
Yeah. Let me think. Oh, another kind of question from like the planning and funding sides of things. Have you considered using independent platforms like Patreon or Patreon alternatives? It's in a similar way to how Diversity in Comics, formerly the artist formerly known as Diversity Comics,
Right.
now Comics Matter with your boy Zach. He used Patreon to fund Ironsides. Have you considered a strategy like that?
Yeah, since we're pretty new on the scene, like we know that that's going to take a while to build up. I do have a Patreon, well, the shell of it at least. Like I don't have it fully put together yet.
Uh-huh.
But once, like, I want to say once I hit around 800 followers on Twitter, and maybe 25, 30 followers on YouTube, like that's when I'm going to start heavily promoting the Patreon.
Gotcha. Have you looked into SubcribeStar at all?
No, I'm interested in that, and whatever Jordan Peterson ends up launching, unless
Yeah,
that is SubscribeStar.
I'll be interested to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Because my wife has a Patreon for her own work as a freelance illustrator, and it basically, the way Patreon functions is you kind of have to bring an audience with you to Patreon. It's
Yeah.
not really something that you can kind of grow
Right.
organically from nothing. So, like, she uses it and she's not the biggest fan. So if there's a better alternative that pops up, we're totally looking into it.
Definitely. Oh, I didn't lose my question. Okay. So you mentioned that you've done free comic book day comics for kids. I love kids comics. I love kids stories. It's actually been like a big chunk of my channel is reviewing children's books and such.
Oh, nice.
Have you considered like bringing those up and maybe like making a super duper chibi comics kids collection or something as a future Indiegogo project?
Yeah, totally. I can't remember what show, because I've done a bunch for promotion, but I was on some show and we were having a discussion about the fact that one of the aspects lacking in Comicsgate is kids books.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, we want to see how Samurai goes. We want to see how The Gods Fear Me goes. But towards the end of this year, if not sometime next year, Selena and I are planning on rolling out the book that we do every year for kids is called For Hire. We're considering rolling out a For Hire campaign, or one of the other projects we have that's called I Go Bump.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, we're definitely interested in providing that service to Comicsgate supporters.
Excellent. Well, I just want to let you know that you have an open invitation on this channel to let people know about projects you're working on in the future.
Awesome, thank you, man.
So you've mentioned Comicsgate specifically. Like I'll have anyone on. I'll have Comicsgate people on. I'll have just like independent people on who they don't know what to think about Comicsgate. So why have you decided like to make that like part of what you talk about online? Why is that important to you?
Um, well, well, first off, thanks for the open invitation, and even after the campaign's over, I'm happy to pop in every now and then.
Absolutely.
Um, so there were kind of three key moments that led to that decision of, like, if the party doesn't want you, why do you want to be a part of the party?
Yeah.
The first was last year. My wife and I took a meeting with a comic publisher. They're based here in Portland, and I know that kind of narrows it down a lot, but still, I'm trying not to name names.
Gotcha.
We took a meeting, and when the subject of work came up, the person that we were meeting with, like, the first thing out of his mouth was, "None of us are doing this to get rich." And at that point, like, I had been so indoctrinated to the idea of comics as such a poverty-based medium
Hmm.
that I just kind of nodded my head and was like, well, yeah, of course, none of us are doing this to get rich. I'm just like, we're just going to do this for next to no money for the rest of our lives. And within like an hour after the meeting, we were driving home, and do you know that quote from the Sex Pistols? Like, do you ever feel like you've been cheated?
I hadn't heard it before, but I'm guessing that was kind of like stuck in your craw a bit.
Yeah, like, that phrase stuck in my head, and I was, like, I said to my wife, I'm like, no, I'm doing this to get rich.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be poor. um and that deal ended up falling through anyway,
Hmm.
and I think it was for the best given where that company is at these days. um the next incident was everything that happened with Peter Simeti last year.
Yeah.
um Peter's kind of become like a good professional acquaintance to my wife and I.
Yeah.
And just seeing how terrible he was treated last year, and even like some of this year already, um we were just like, well, look, if he's quote unquote in the industry and this is what his life is like what are we doing?
Yeah. And
um
for people in the chat who may not be familiar, Peter Simetti is the head of Alterna Comics, which is one of the best, gifts to the comics community. Alterna Comics. You can get all kinds of fun, adventurous comics for like $1.50, right? When other companies are charging $4 to $5 to $8 for a floppy magazine. So, and Peter Simetti is such a gift, and people were just piling on him last year over nothing, over him wanting to have a policy for people working with him to not use block bots. Like people working with him could still block people on an individual basis. He just didn't want people blocking thousands of potential customers using like a robot, that's supposed to sense who all the bad people are, right?
yeah, and like we completely agreed with his decision, and it was smart business sense.
Yeah.
Which I think is a lot of what is rooted in Comicsgate specifically, like the idea of like, hey, if someone's trying to give you money, don't treat them like crap.
Yep.
And then the third moment was my wife and I just recently had our first kid, and
Whoa! Congratulations!
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, he's 6 months old now. And so, we were hanging out in the front room, and the two of them were napping on the couch next to me. And, I looked at them and I was like, what are you doing, Mike? Like, since my wife and I both have the exact same job, we earn enough that we're stable, but it's that thing of like, you can never accumulate wealth really.
Yeah.
And, like, I was just like, is that what you want to get across to him? The idea of like, hey, you can be stable, but like, there's a barrier to entry in terms of like accumulating wealth and actually improving your lot in life. And I talked with Zach from Diversity, and I was expressing a lot of this stuff to him, and he shared something. He was like, if you do this, the only thing you'll have to worry about is never having to worry about anything again, financially speaking.
If you can hit the stride, yeah.
Yeah, if you can find your niche within Comicsgate, if you can build an audience outside of the standard comic industry audience,
Yeah.
there's the potential to actually build something lasting.
So this might be important to emphasize for people, because I've noticed that people hear the term Comicsgate and they think, oh no, internet drama. But for you, when you're describing Comicsgate, you are describing an opportunity for creative people. You and your wife, you're a family of creative people. We're just trying to be creative and make a life for yourselves. And for you, that if the mainstream industries can't offer that to you, you have a right and the opportunity to go it alone on Indiegogo and build your own audience. And I think that's to be celebrated.
Thank you. Exactly. Like I was just talking about this this morning. I avoid drama like the plague.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a Sweetcast this morning, and like we touched on some of the stuff with Renfamous and some of the other like usual suspects, and I can't stand that stuff.
Yeah.
Like I do all I can to not engage with any of that stuff at all. Like, to me, Comicsgate is simply a rough alliance of independent publishers all trying to share resources and build an audience.
Yep. And provide connections. That's the big thing, because I think it was just someone on Twitter just added me I think I have to put people on. And someone added me and showed me your project. And I think that's really important to emphasize is we think, oh, Comicsgate. Yeah, I know all the Comicsgate people, but there's so many people that you can still find little pockets of people who you haven't spotted before with great projects. So I think that's one of the most important things is I have opportunities to find projects like yours to fund and give you a chance to, talk about it and learn about the project.
Totally, totally. And like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I got to speak and hang out for a while with Antonio Bryce, who does brand on Indiegogo.
Huh.
And he's the writer. And like I really appreciate what guys like him are doing and the approach that he's taking with Comicsgate, because if you study his YouTube channel and what he's trying to build with it, like he's trying to avoid the drama and build bridges. Like he's doing more and more interviews with like traditional, mainstream comic industry types. And I really appreciate that about him, because sure, the drama can be fun to like watch from afar once in a while, but I think Antonio really shows like, hey, like we're not messing around here. We really are fans of the medium like you guys are. We just are choosing to build a different business model
Yeah.
for getting, this stuff out to readers.
So what's interesting about that to me is I kind of got tired of the Comicsgate hashtag because like it just to me personally it felt like I would say something about Comicsgate and then someone would say you don't like diversity or something, right? So it felt
Oh
like the
yeah.
conversation was getting confused. What you're articulating is that there is still like this really vibrant, really intense group of people who are creative, and but by having that professional focus on, I want to make stories, I want to build an audience, I want to find alternative routes of publishing my work. You're honing in, I think, on what made Comicsgate positive and important to people like me in the first place. So I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Yeah, and like there's a lot of people in the scene that are being very innovative, and I don't think are getting the credit that they deserve. I mean, you look at what like some of the bigger names have built with, Drawn and Quartered, and the auction that they've recently started over the past couple weeks. Like that's yet another business model that's kind of adjacent to the publishing branch of Comicsgate that didn't exist before. Like the idea of like, hey, we're going to just start a YouTube stream and auction off artwork, and whoever wants in, just say you want it and name your price. Like no one else thought of that. And it, like I think it's a really smart approach to not only building an audience, but getting the work to that audience.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I don't like I mean, I'm not naive. I know that there's like both good and bad that comes with the hashtag and the name itself. But what's his name? The guy that created Conflict, James Dean.
Is that the actor?
No. Uh, I'm butchering his name, and I've talked to him like 3 or 4 times now. Anyway, he has an Indiegogo project called Conflict, Claws Out, and I was on a show with him about a week ago, and he framed it perfectly. He was like, if you take all the bad actors out of Comicsgate on both sides of the argument, uh, is the mainstream comic industry still in trouble? Yes.
Yep.
And I took it a step further, and I was like, if you take those bad actors out from both sides, is Comicsgate still a viable business model? Yes. So, like we can focus on like the random Twitter account that just says something like horribly misogynist or whatever. We can focus on that and we can focus on the Renfamouses of the world, or we can just kind of stay on target and focus on the books and the quality of the books.
Just to clarify, your character Ren is not named after a Twitter troll who shall not be named, right?
Ooh, no.
Just a coincidence.
Yeah, an unfortunate coincidence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your Ren actually looks like really cool and really well put together.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, like that's what we were talking about this morning. Yesterday, I noticed that I got tagged in some post that she was making because she was going after Crystal, who started a project around the same time as me called The Good Night.
Yeah.
And like she was coming down so hard on Crystal, and it's like, you realize what you're doing, right? Like you're going after a woman who happens to be black and is everything that you're saying is missing from this movement. Like you're openly attacking that person.
Right. But then she'll share articles saying like minorities can be evil, awful, alt-right Nazis too. And
Yeah.
she's so weird.
Yeah. So like she tagged me in one of those posts, and like I just instantly blocked her. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not even
right.
messing with
So I have talked to Ren a couple times. I've talked about her a couple times. I think your no drama approach might be the smartest thing, where like that's a distraction. Like I haven't seen a troll contribute anything of substance. The reason you want to react is they're calling people Nazis, and you think, man, we can't let people just call people Nazis. We can't let that accusation stand unopposed. But then what they get you to do is they get you to sink into always, yelling about who isn't a Nazi, instead of just let's make some books. Let's talk about some awesome stories. Let's have some fun, and let's create an industry, and let's celebrate other creators. And that's something that no troll can speak to, because they can't operate in that world. They can't exist in the world of someone making a great book and sharing it with people, and people liking it. That's the antithesis of what they're trying to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, like it is what it is. Like, like the phrase "don't feed the trolls" exists for a reason. Like, yeah. I mean, I kind of take the Joe Rogan approach of like, I don't care about that stuff. Like, yeah. I'll talk to anybody, I'll interact with anybody. I judge everyone on their individual actions, and all the nonsense online that people just like spinning their wheels about for hours and hours. Like, I don't even pay attention to it.
Are you now, or have you ever been an individualist?
I try to be.
I'm just kidding you, bro. All right. What else would you like to tell us about Samurai and Dinosaurs?
Well, I know we're coming down to the wire. I'm going to be doing heavy, despite the fact that I'm fighting off a cold, I'm going to be doing heavy promotion between now and Tuesday. So I know like we're kind of unproven in this space, and what I can tell any potential backers is the entire project is done. Even, the revisions that Sergio, like I was accounting for like a month to give him those, the time to do those revisions. Mm-hmm. And he's already done with them.
Wow.
Sergio is a beast. Like, he's one of the fastest artists I've ever known. So the entire book is done. So if we can get this funded, we might keep it in demand for like 2 or 3 weeks, just for people who are, missing out.
Yeah.
But essentially by like the middle or end of March, we're good to go to print. This isn't a case of like you're going to be waiting 4 or 5 months to get the book.
Right.
It will be in your hands between the end of April and the beginning of May.
And something I tell people who, like, I have a lot of kids in my audience, right? So even if like you cannot buy this book yourself, it never hurts to share it, because maybe some of the people who follow you on social media, maybe they're really interested in samurais and dinosaurs, like this can't be stressed enough that when we're talking about the internet's ability to let us promote our projects and introduce them to people, like the fans, the people using the internet, they make all the difference. The only reason that the internet is a useful tool is because so many people use it and can share information with it. So please, I strongly encourage everyone, do check out the Indiegogo page, even if you can't like afford it right now. Share it with some people, and maybe come back to it and decide if it's something you'd like to fund. If you have the funds, I have kicked into it. I'm excited for it. I love Akira Kurosawa, and I'm really looking forward to how you tackle the concept of samurais and dinosaurs. And I'm really impressed by how you talked about your inspirations and your thoughts on storytelling.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for being a backer.
You are welcome. I'd like to give you. I think I've asked all the questions I can think of for now. So I'd like to give you kind of like the floor to like maybe deliver the elevator pitch again. I saw that Nerd Wonder and Indie Dave Comics have joined the chat. They're two cool people. So give us the elevator pitch one more time for Samurai and Dinosaurs.
Sure, you got it. So Samurai and Dinosaurs focuses on an elite group of samurai who are dispatched to investigate a downed meteorite on the outskirts of a Japanese city. The story becomes a road movie, and along the journey, they discover that time is beginning to break down and fracture all around them, and dinosaurs are bleeding into their timeline. It's a whole bunch of different things all rolled into one. It's a revenge story. It's an homage to samurai films, both the good and the kind of grindhousey stuff. There's a little bit of Jurassic Park in there, and it's also heavily influenced by stuff like Lone Wolf and Cub and Usagi Yojimbo. It's 110 pages of gorgeous black and white art designed to emulate Japanese scroll art, and it'll only set you back $20. So please consider backing it.
Excellent. And I am a proud backer of Samurai and Dinosaurs. I look forward to future projects from Chibi Comics. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct.
All right, Chibi Comics, a creative husband-wife duo who've done children's comics and more comics coming down the pipeline. So once again, you have an open invite to join me on this channel to talk about updates on Samurai and Dinosaurs and future projects as you're getting ready to announce those to the public. Thank you so much for joining me today to chat about this project.
That's greatly appreciated. Thank you.
You are welcome. With that, I'm number one Marmaduke fan. Thank you to everyone in the chat who joined us today and brought your questions. I want to thank all the people who have supported me on SubcribeStar and just supported this channel in general this year. Always feel free to let me know about artists and creative people you find on Twitter and the internet, so I can, because I absolutely want to provide people like Mike Murphy as many chances as possible to share these great independent comic projects with you. I'm so happy to have discovered Samurai and Dinosaurs.
Happy to have you.
All right, I think that's it for now. I'm looking forward to having you back again. So we're gonna wish you on the internet a good day, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Take care.
Goodbye.